morning, Ms. Mehta. Thank you for meeting with me today. Um, how are you today?
Good.
So let's talk a little bit about the class that I saw.
Okay.
And let me just pull up my notes here. Um, is there anything in particular that you want to highlight before we get started about that class?
Um,
No?
I think everything was good. They were doing their writing samples. I was pretty proud of them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay. All right. Well, let me just go over my notes
okay.
and, just so we could refresh memory. So, when I came in, you were distributing papers and you were asking your students to write their name. Um, you checked on their understanding by saying, what are we supposed to be writing? And your students responded, I see. And so all of them were supposed to be writing, I see. Um, a lot of your students were on task. Most of them actually were on task. And I noticed that Miguel was one of the first ones that said, Ms. Menta, I'm done. And it wasn't even 30 seconds starting the activity, he was already done. I noticed that you were going around and you talked to several students on what they were supposed to do and you were supporting their writing. Um, so you said you felt comfortable with this class. What is it that you feel was the most successful part of that group?
Um, Most successful. I mean, they're pretty self-sufficient, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to go around and just assist the few that I need to watch. We did the set and stem before that,
Mm-hmm.
and then they got to turn and talk to their partner what they were going to write about. I see. And then they got to go do it at their desk independently. So I think that also helped them to know
Mm-hmm.
what they were going to write about.
Mhm. Yeah, I noticed that your gradual release is pretty on point. You showed them what to do, then you did it a little bit with them, and then you said, okay, now you're ready to do it. So gradual releasing them is there. Also, student behavior. They knew exactly what to do. They sat down. I mean, being pre-K, I know that is difficult, but they actually monitor and adjust every time you mention it. You say, okay, let me check how you're sitting, and they will like sort of
Hmm.
correct it themselves. All right. Um, I just wanted to ask, what did you think about differentiation?
Yeah, I saw that on your comments, and I was just feeling like, well, since there was a writing sample, I give them the prompt, right? I see. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's up to them to write the last part. But the differentiation comes, they're all writing at different levels. Sometimes some
Okay.
kids will just write I, and that's all they can give me. Or they'll write I see, and I think at that point they were doing a tree.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they just write I C, and they'll write the letter C instead of SEE,
Okay.
even though we've gone over it. And then you see the last word, they'll just write the T for the tree instead of
Mm-hmm.
writing the whole word, or they'll put TRE and not
Mm-hmm.
two E's. So I mean that's where the differentiation comes in. Like they're all writing at their level, what they know and how they can do it, and that shows me as I'm observing who I need to still work with, how to spell certain words, or where to put the punctuation mark and the capital letters. So I could kind of gauge that while walking around.
Okay. All right. So what is mastery at this point? Because you said they're writing at their level. So what would mastery be for pre-K writing this sentence stem ICU, and in that case it was a tree, right?
Mhm.
So for you, what would mastery look like?
Um, Mastery to me would just be that they did it. You know, they made their tree, they wrote the sentence stem I see, and then
Mm-hmm.
the tree, I don't expect them to get it perfectly because that's where their letter sound knowledge comes in. So I
Mm-hmm.
just want to see how close they're getting to it. You know, some of them
Mm-hmm.
can spell it, some of them can't,
Mm-hmm.
some of them can just write a T. But now say like they're writing a P, the tree doesn't have a P sound. So to me that would show that they're not getting their letter sounds, and that's something I need to focus on with that child. So
Okay.
that's where that would come in.
So if they're not getting that sound, how do you support them? You're saying I would work with them.
Small
How?
group,
Okay.
small group. So when they come to my table, I know. And also, how do I group them? Because I'm not going to put some child that already can write tree perfectly in a group with a child who's writing a letter P for tree. So, you know, it helps me with grouping, it helps me with my small group instruction.
Okay.
And that's where the differentiation comes.
All right, so maybe next time when I come in, I can see that small grouping, like how you group them, you know, for their writing, and maybe how you're working with those kiddos. So that would be, can I borrow a pencil?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say that is our differentiation piece. So grouping. So that would be our next focus, how you're grouping them and what you're using and exactly, you know, what you're doing because I haven't been able to see that part. So we can sort of look at that.
Okay.
Also, let me look, students actively participating in the lesson. So I noticed most of them were participating, and I go back to Miguel. Miguel kept on saying, you know, I'm done. I'm done. He's like, I'm done. But I looked at it and it was 9:04 and then 9:06 he was already done, according to him. When I looked at the picture and I actually took a picture of it, he was nowhere near done.
Right.
But then you did work with him at 9:10. So it was 6 minutes that he was just sort of just sitting around, doing nothing, bothering his peers and playing around. So, what do you think about that?
I mean, I always tell them to ask their friends if they're not, if they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. But, you know, you're always going to have certain kids, and that's where I come in, where I have to make it around to help. And since you're the only one in the class, because a lot of pre-cares, it's kind of, it takes a minute to walk around because I want to make sure the other ones are on task by the time I get to that table. So, I mean, yeah, once I did get there, he knew what he was supposed to do, and I assisted him in writing his sentence.
Definitely. Okay. What is his level?
He's a 3.
Really?
He's a 3.
So maybe we need to support him a little more. Are we going to be pulling Miguel? Is that one of our
He's a
kids?
Spanish speaker, so
Oh, okay.
Ms. Sanchez, I think, is going to be talking, because she was saying that she needed to get my class with, I don't know the lady's name.
Lopez, Ms. Lopez.
Ms. Lopez. Because she started with her class already, but she needs to give names from my class that she needs to assist.
Oh, okay. So maybe Miguel is definitely one of our
Yes,
our ones.
definitely.
Because I see that Miguel is pretty bright. Like he'll catch on really fast, but he really does need a lot of redirecting.
Yes,
Redirecting.
yes,
And
that's
he's
what it is.
Constantly calling him, Ms. Mata, Ms. Mata, Ms.
Right.
Mata, Ms. Mata.
Yes,
So
an
definitely.
attention seeker.
Definitely. Okay. All right. Well, Ms. Mata, thank you for meeting with me today. Is there anything else that you want me to look at? Do you want me to come back and see a particular lesson or a particular area?
I mean, you're most welcome whenever you want to come.
Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Mata, I will I'll give you my note. I actually shared my notes with you. If
Correct,
there's
I read
any,
it.
yeah, I find that, whenever I walk into your class, that I just like, I really enjoy listening here and watching what you do with this kiddo because I know pre-K is not an easy
Yeah,
grade.
and I remember from last year writing way earlier and how some of them are catching on way faster this year. I feel every year is different, but this year I'm like surprised to see so many kids already grasping the information.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank
All
you,
right.
Ms. Mata.